Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Smay, the Executive Director of the Arts Initiative and Miller Theater at Columbia University, and it is my very great pleasure to welcome you this morning to this extraordinary conversation with Professor Elaine Sisman and the incomparable Valery Gergiev. This is the very first collaboration of the World Leaders Forum, the Core Curriculum, and Miller Theater, though I certainly hope it will not be the last. We would also like to extend our special thanks to Columbia's Center for the Core Curriculum and the Music Humanities Corps, St. Petersburg State University, the Knowledge is Power program charter schools, and especially PricewaterhouseCoopers for their support of this event. As you may know, we are being joined live today by a group of students at St. Petersburg State University in Russia, who will also be participating in the question and answer session that will follow today's talk. It's incredibly exciting to have a truly global audience for this World Leaders Forum. There they are. I've been asked to introduce today's speakers to you. As General Director and Artistic Director of the Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, Russia, Valery Gergiev leads the Mariinsky Opera, Ballet, and Orchestra. He is also Principal Conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra. Born in Moscow, Maestro Gergiev studied conducting at the Leningrad Conservatory and at the age of 23 won Berlin's prestigious Herbert von Karajan Music Prize. He made his Kirov Opera debut in 1978 with Prokofiev's War and Peace, and was named Artistic Director of the Opera Company in 1988 at the age of 35. In 1996, the Russian government gave him complete control over the orchestra, opera, and ballet. Over the past 15 years, he has significantly expanded the theater's repertoire, demonstrating a passionate commitment to contemporary composers and choreographers, as well as leading landmark performances of such cornerstones of the repertoire as Wagner's Ring Cycle. Maestro Gergiev just may be, to borrow a much-worn phrase, the hardest working man in show business. He's a commanding presence in New York's cultural landscape. Last season, he conducted the complete Mahler symphonies with two of the world's leading orchestras in two of New York's most important concert halls, leading the Mariinsky Orchestra at Carnegie Hall and the London Symphony Orchestra at Avery Fisher. He conducted a brand new production of Mussorgsky's monumental opera Boris Godunov at the Metropolitan Opera. In April, he led the New York Philharmonic in a series of performances as part of a special festival called the Russian Stravinsky, including beloved masterpieces such as The Firebird, The Rite of Spring, Symphony of Psalms, and the opera Oedipus Rex. And, over the summer, he was at the podium for the Mariinsky Ballet's return to Lincoln Center, leading the United States premiere performances of two new ballets. And that's just one season, and just in New York. The maestro's schedule takes him around the world for guest conducting engagements with, among others, the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, Teatro alla Scala, and the Vienna Philharmonic. Over the course of his career, he has worked with nearly all of the world's major international orchestras and opera companies. Earlier this week, he returned to New York to open Carnegie Hall's 120th anniversary season with the Mariinsky Orchestra, embarking on a survey of Tchaikovsky's symphonies. Reviewing the first concert, the New York Times likened the maestro's unique ability to highlight the color and character of each instrument to seeing Rimsky-Korsakov's book on orchestration come to life on stage. Today's conversation will be moderated by Elaine Sisman, the Anne Parsons Bender Professor of Music at Columbia University. Ms. Sisman joined the Columbia faculty in 1982 and served as chair of the music department from 1999 to 2005. The former president of the American Musicological Society, she specializes in music of the 18th and 19th centuries and has written extensively on the music of Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart, and Brahms. She studied piano at Juilliard and Cornell and received her doctorate in music history at Princeton. She has taught at the University of Michigan and Harvard University and has been awarded grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities and the American Council of Learned Societies. Columbia has honored her with its Great Teacher Award and the Award for Distinguished Service to the Core Curriculum. So, we are in for quite a treat. Professor Sisman will lead the first part of the discussion, but there will be an opportunity for questions later in the program from both the audience here in this room and from our friends in St. Petersburg. I would encourage you all to be bold and ask whatever questions you may have, whether they are about Tchaikovsky and the grand tradition of Russian music, or simply questions about the day-to-day challenges of working with superstar classical music soloists. This is your chance to get an inside perspective on classical music, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. I would also like to extend an invitation for all of you in New York to join us for the post-talk reception at Faculty House, where you will have an opportunity to meet this world-famous musician. Thank you, and enjoy.
We'd like to begin with a video clip of your recent work, new release from the Mariinsky label. what better way to start than with the Tchaikovsky Fourth? You're here to open the Carnegie Hall season with performances of Tchaikovsky's symphonies, all 6 of them. And I guess we've already heard part of the answer to the question, what do these pieces still have to say to us today?
Well, the great symphonies and Tchaikovsky is popular for certain reasons. People come and enjoy his music for the last 120 years at least here in America, and even maybe 140, 150 years in Russia, and they want more of it. Every day, another performance of piano concerto, violin concerto, or Swan Lake, or Nutcracker, or the symphonies, and so on. I can continue forever. Onegin, Queen of Spades. It's not only a big happening, it's also invitation for tomorrow. And I think music is so full of beauty and fantastic melodies. Sometimes people say, what is Russian soul? There is no answer to it, but you come closer to the answer if you just experience yet another time what is Tchaikovsky symphony telling you, what is instrumental concerti. Just 2 days ago, Yo-Yo Ma played Rococo Variations. Not a huge composition, but what a composition. Yeah. It only takes 17 minutes or 18 minutes, but then you feel it's a whole world, and you are told a fantastic tale. And this is what Tchaikovsky could do with ballet, with opera, with symphony, with many, many different compositions. He was always here. And I think in Carnegie Hall tradition, there are many, many great names, but somehow it is not only very pleasing to think that it started with Tchaikovsky, and even here he was amongst the very, very best, because there was a reason why he was invited here to open Carnegie Hall, I think. He's just fantastic musician, and he takes, say, ballet as a genre, takes it here, and this is where he lives it. And that's what he did basically everywhere.
Really the first great composer to write ballet music. When you conduct Tchaikovsky in Russia, how is the response different from what you experience here when you conduct Tchaikovsky?
Let's say there is always a response. I don't think his music has this ability to leave a lot of people untouched. Or better to say, it's unable to do so. His music has direct and very honest way, and then responses coming back, and response normally is very emotional, overwhelming, and it's just very honest.
When you hear the dance movements in Tchaikovsky symphonies, it sounds like his ballet music. What is the difference for you when you're conducting Tchaikovsky for the ballet, say for the Kirov Ballet, or for the symphony orchestra?
I don't see big difference between conducting when ballet is on stage or conducting just orchestra. You focus on music. The best ballet performances normally are associated with a very high level of music making. We know that they are fantastic dancers, and sometimes conductor can only follow them. But even better scenario is when there is a fantastic dancer on stage, and there's a beautiful music coming from the orchestra. And Tchaikovsky had incredible quality. He was a big symphonic composer, so his intellectual capacity was enormous. His melodic gifts were equal to those 3 foremost famous melodists of all time, Mozart or Puccini or Verdi, Rossini. But then comes Tchaikovsky. Clearly he will be always in a big 3 or big 4 or big 5 of all times, because the whole world loves those melodies. But then comes his incredible theatricality. That's why his ballet music is so memorable, so danceable. And then comes his symphonic power. So even Nutcracker, we call this ballet Shilkunchik in my country. maybe most popular ballet of all times, easy to say. There is a competition from Swan Lake.
My
So-
favorite is Swan Lake.
Well, you see. But here you have this fantastic, very memorable music. So it's very, in a way, very simple. It just goes straight to a heart. But there is a huge quality of organization of this composition. And his symphonic writing is so impeccable. So he combines what we always try in our lives, pleasure and seriousness, to be very beautiful, but also to be organized, to be very fresh, but also very wise. He somehow has it all.
And in the Fourth Symphony that we just heard, it's also a powerfully dramatic moment.
Well, you can't escape it if you live in Russia. It's always a little bit dramatic. So,
You've also been a champion of 20th century Russian works and have brought the premieres of Prokofiev's War and Peace and The Gambler to the Metropolitan Opera. And I heard you state that you thought people who were going to spend the rest of their lives just going to performances of Otello and La Traviata really need something else to hear. Would you like to see those works become repertory staples at the Met?
well, first of all, I conducted Otello and Traviata at the Met too. So you caught me with a repertoire here. I think Traviata and Otello are fantastic operas. But I think our lives are a little bit poorer if we only think that there are 3 operas or maximum 5 operas. Actually, there are 100 at least worth our attention. And my work or my life is focused on making it easier for millions of people to understand why Fiery Angel should be performed. So I recorded this, we made a video of this production. The Gambler, or Semyon Kotko, or Betrothal in a Monastery, and of course Laugh of Free Oranges. Yes, War and Peace, gigantic War and Peace. I still remember how then it was practically her big debut on the Met stage. Anna Netrebko was singing a famous role of Natasha Rostova, and she looked the role, and she sounds, and she acts. But the whole production was a fantastic event here in New York, and just 1 year before we did it in Russia, the same production. It started there, and audiences were thrilled. I remember you couldn't get a ticket here, you couldn't get a ticket there, because there is something special about this opera. So it's not only Traviata, which, by the way, Anna sings beautifully, Traviata. So she finds it good. She finds it very necessary to sing both. I find it necessary to conduct Stravinsky, Prokofiev, Shostakovich, and even contemporary composers, living composers. But I go back and conduct Verdi or Tchaikovsky all the time, Wagner or Puccini all the time. It makes my life much more interesting. So you don't ignore giants like Prokofiev, because it's not Prokofiev who will suffer. We will suffer. That's the answer.
The Gambler is World War I Prokofiev, the young hothead international. War and Peace is World War II Prokofiev, already under the Soviet thumb. Are there differences you see in those works that connect to Prokofiev's change politically?
Naturally, you hear opera The Gambler, and you think of Dostoevsky. You also think of totally different scale Prokofiev envisaged himself. For example, The Gambler, everything is around one person. It's a fantastic world around this person. Incredible story. Dostoevsky was a master of characteristics. Prokofiev, it appears, even being a very young man, 20-something, was a master of this immediate. He captured the most important. And by the way, Dostoevsky's novel is not very big, but Prokofiev even shortened it. So he just left most important fabula, just to make it work as an opera production. And it's extremely explosive, has phenomenal climax in the roulette scene, the gambling scene. I love this opera. I thought New York City loved this opera too. That was my feeling. We did it many times here.
Yes.
Revival brought even more interest, I think. So that's the best proof of opera being truly great. Some people come to the first performance. More people come to the second performance because the word of mouth helps. Sometimes it's opposite. A lot of people come to the first, a big expectation, disappointment, and diminishing, and then it goes to nothing. The interest is gone. The appreciation is small, and so on. In case of both The Gambler and War and Peace, it made this enormous crescendo in both cases. Worldwide. We brought War and Peace production to Madrid, to La Scala, to Covent Garden, to Tokyo, of course, to Moscow, Petersburg, New York. It's quite a lot. And then we wanted to do many, many more things with Prokofiev repertoire. So we wanted to stage opera like Semyon Kotko. Truly great opera, truly great opera. I still remember recently, a few years ago, I performed in Edinburgh, in concert form, for Edinburgh International Festival. Phenomenal reaction from the public. It just, people jump out of their chairs because the power of this music, Act 3 I performed in concert, is such that people can't stay, just away from what just happens, away. It just takes them. So it's like a power of nature. This is the first sign of great composer. So Verdi had this power, Wagner had this power. Yes, Prokofiev has this power. And War and Peace is just totally different, as I promised to say, on a different scale. You want to have an all-embracing picture. You follow Tolstoy, the book is like this, as you all know, and then the opera is like this. And then you have to be prepared to spend 4 hours or more in the opera house. You have to be prepared for the epics. Even Napoleon himself will sing for you. And how? Yeah. And it's also very cinematic. So Prokofiev was a great film composer. Sometimes he's not mentioned amongst those film composers. For me, he was the best ever. If you just look what he did for Alexander Nevsky or Ivan the Terrible, very difficult to match. We use it in the sports. It's a world record. Yeah, 70 years ago or more, difficult to beat even today. So I think if we talk about Prokofiev, of course I'm very proud he represents Russian school, but we will play in few days at Carnegie Hall just 3 excerpts from Romeo and Juliet, and again after Tchaikovsky and after his free ballet music, there were Stravinsky, there were many great composers, and again maybe Prokofiev takes the gold because his Romeo and Juliet again is a champion. In the 20th century, this score stands very, very high. Even speaking about Stravinsky, with all this huge revolution, came with a Sacre, with Petrushka, with a Firebird, a Nos, fantastic. But Prokofiev, it's very human, and it's true love story, and it's true tragedy, and it's true drama, and it's so beautiful. And I think we are very, very happy to be musicians because that's how we spend our life. Today Prokofiev, tomorrow Verdi, day after tomorrow Tchaikovsky. It's, for me, it's even more important than breakfast. Yeah.
Another important figure in the Opera House is the director, and one notable mishap that occurred during the Met premiere of The Gambler was there was a complicated piece of stage machinery and a singer fell into the pit.
It was a
the
War and
orchestra
Peace.
pit.
War and Peace.
Oh, it was War and Peace.
Yes.
The question is, do you have a say in anything having to do with the direction of an opera? What do you struggle with directors sometimes if your musical vision conflicts?
I love to work with directors. Some of them are a problem, some of them are friends, some of them are huge problem, but some of them are just fantastic gain, fantastic a victory. When opera comes to a harmony where sets, costumes, lights, music, voices, director and conductor sometimes are important, but when they work together and you feel that it's the best thing you ever experienced, then most probably you can say, finally. So you wait normally. Directors come and go, but then comes real big D director, and then things are looking fantastic. So I admire directors, but I know that they're dangerous.
And is it different all over the world? Are there different kinds of directors and issues in producing opera in the many places that you've conducted?
Well, thanks God, opera lives and thrives because there is no crisis in opera world. Opera houses are full. Yesterday I was at the end of performance. I just conducted 2 symphonies only yesterday. Then I had to excuse myself, no signing, nothing, and I went straight to the Metropolitan Opera. I listened to the last 20 minutes of Anna Bolena, the opera of Donizetti, and Anna Netrebko was singing the role of Anna Bolena. It was gorgeous, and the house was not only full, the house was full of emotions. I think it was a house full of happiness. Everyone, it seems, was thrilled. Everyone was happy, and that's what the whole opera story is about. You just make people happy. You make people feel that there is something in our lives. You are ready to sacrifice many other things because this you cannot miss. I think this is what I experienced yesterday myself. Although I have to say, back to Carnegie Hall, we also had totally full house. It also was difficult to leave the stage because it seems Tchaikovsky also touched everyone yesterday at the Carnegie Hall. So we had at least 7,000 people or so yesterday in one city, in one evening, simultaneously 2 events. And I felt those 7,000 people were clearly make it known. They were happy. That's the power of music.
But in the last 20 minutes, Anne Boleyn is facing death, and she's having a mad scene and then walks to her execution. So the people may be happy in the opera house, but how could you describe that kind of happiness when they're watching this tormented woman?
Yeah, you know, when I was maybe 15 years old, or even maybe when I was 13 years old, I also was in trouble. I couldn't understand. Don José just kills Carmen. She is definitely dead. And then opera house goes, wow, bravo!
It's true. No, but I think the audience really must see Anna Netrebko sing Anna Bolena. It's her voice. To hear an unamplified voice fill the opera house. One thing that music humanities students are always surprised by is that there was no miking at the Met. And
It's a miracle of opera. Anna was killed. 20 minutes later, we had a very nice dinner together in a restaurant across the road. So that's the miracle of opera.
Let me ask you something about your career. You began a very successful career, as we've heard, very young, under communism, and you were appointed director of the Mariinsky Theater in the 1990s and have maintained its position. And I wondered if you could say something about the differences in your career as you perceived them over the last few decades and the role of the theater in particular also in the life of St. Petersburg.
I will say nothing about my career because there was no such a thing in my life. I didn't understand the word career before. It seems I made some career, so I didn't think very much. But I looked at my colleagues maybe when I was 18, 19. For the first time in my life, I went to Leningrad, it was called, great city. For us, it's the most beautiful city in the world. And my colleagues there in St. Petersburg have a privilege to be there right now. New York is also great. I love New York. But slightly younger city, so that's younger brother. But St. Petersburg celebrated 300 years not so long ago. But for me, being 18 years old or 19 years old, it was a total shock to hear great orchestra, great conductor, for the first time in a great hall, which is important, to hear great opera and ballet performances. That was my first few months. So my destiny was clear. I knew even then in 1972 that I will never change the course. I will go on and become conductor. The question was if I will learn really how to conduct good or great orchestra. Will I have a chance to conduct truly great orchestra ever in my life? The answer was not known to me. I felt being very small, but I felt the world around me was very big. That was my luckiest moment, because then I learned in Leningrad so much from colleagues, from friends, from professors, but also from the student colleagues, by the way. We were teachers to each other somehow, because one knew a lot about Mozart, another knew a lot about Tchaikovsky, another knew a lot about contemporary, and then we all go to Conservatory of Music, like in St. Petersburg University, people go every day and learn, because it's a lot to learn for all of us. Even now, maybe this is what career finally is about. You know, you learn, and then you suddenly discover, oh, you had a career already.
But how did you learn to conduct when you can't practice? With a piano, with a French horn, you can practice. How do you develop the skills with an orchestra? How do you develop your ear to bring those remarkable colors that you do?
Oh, I don't know what to say, but maybe when you are 18 years old and you see fantastic Hollywood movie and there's a beautiful, beautiful actress, and you think, oh, what a beautiful woman, you know, really beautiful. It's the same. You listen to the great orchestra, you think, what a great orchestra, but you never know how to conduct this orchestra. Then comes the day you are there and conduct very same orchestra or same quality orchestra. So when I heard first time Leningrad Philharmonic or Berlin Philharmonic or Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra live, I had no idea I will ever conduct these orchestras. So I learned. Then because I learned something, my destiny helped me. At some point, I was standing there in front of Vienna Philharmonic saying, good morning, orchestra. And then I start, and I conduct Vienna Philharmonic. It was just 15, 16 years ago. Leningrad Philharmonic, maybe 24 years ago. Berlin, even 30 years ago. I conducted Berlin Philharmonic long before I conducted Leningrad Philharmonic, because I was a winner of Herbert von Karajan competition. So only being 23, 24. So my life is not a typical example of how you built it slowly. It just was nothing, and then suddenly it just started. But nothing means you build, learn. People don't know you learn so much because you do it yourself. Read, listen, think. At some point you are ready, or at least you're ready to start. And that's how I see conducting. We don't have much time to talk about conductors. And most important figure in the musical world is composer. So if conductor is happy to be his friend, in a way, his slave, in a way, that most probably means it's a good conductor. Most probably. If conductor thinks that Mozart spent all his life doing something and then comes conductor and just takes it here and puts it there, most probably it's a bad conductor. Most probably, because we have to understand this, that Prokofiev or Tchaikovsky or Mozart or Verdi, they were blessed. You know, somewhere in the skies, it was decided that there will be 10, maybe 20 truly great musicians of all times. We are privileged to have this opportunity to do it regularly, just spend time with their music, which means with them, basically.
It's a wonderful thought. You have been a passionate advocate of getting young people into the concert hall, getting them really to experience the sounds that you heard that galvanized you. And that's one reason we have students from the Knowledge is Power Academy here today. The question I wanted to ask you about that is, what is the best way to enable people to have that experience? In music humanities, we go out into the concert hall, to the Metropolitan Opera, and we have great spaces. But for young people, how can we do that? You can't guarantee that someone will have the experience you have, but you have to put them closer to being able to have it.
Well, I didn't know you will start with the Symphony No. 4 of Tchaikovsky. I also did not know long time ago, before I heard any music. You remember this long play, the records, long play?
Yes.
I don't know how it happened to me. Maybe I was 15 years old. I just heard a famous recording of Evgeny Maravinsky conducting Leningrad Philharmonic Orchestra, and it was Symphony Number 4. You had to start, and it would be first and second movement, then you stop,
Turn it over.
change to the other side, and then third and fourth movement will continue. It was such a total shock and such a brutal change in my life. I remember I couldn't believe it. Something happened to me. So some people are ready to hear the power of music, but maybe some of the people are not. So we don't have to force, we don't have to worry that not 5 billion or not even 6 billion living today on the planet all are madly in love with classical music. It's not a problem. Maybe there are just 100 million. It's a lot. We just have to remember this. It's quite a lot. So maybe there are 500 million. It's even more. So I'm not worried about the future of classical music, because talking about Mozart or Tchaikovsky, if you go through this 100 or 200 years in case of Mozart or more, then there will be 6 billion, maybe 10 billion people, maybe more. So I am not worried. That's my answer. We just have to do it well, and there will be new and new and new, happy, young. Sometimes I'll be not surprised someone comes to the concert hall and hears the orchestra being 40 or 50 years old, and that's the moment he feels something. Because, our lives change. Sometimes we go through personal moments of happiness, but sometimes there's tragedy, there is drama. Even this is possible, that being 50 years old, you just discover the power of music. But it is better you are 15 years old, or even 10 years old, you already start to feel something. It happened to me most probably when I was 14, 15, most probably. Mm-hmm. So it was early enough for me not to lose all my chances, and to spend more time with the music rather than other things. I had many choices, to be honest. I still love soccer. Then I played soccer even 7 in the morning. We would go to the stadium and start playing, because that was a habit we had. Every day, no matter what, sun shining, raining, soccer. It was love of my life then. But somehow, being 15 years old, I switched. It was playing piano, and then later conducting. Very difficult to understand why conductor is needed. It's so funny when someone makes this. I was just lucky, I think.
Right. We're coming to the end of the conversational part of our morning, but I wanted to ask something about the way you get the sound that you want from an orchestra. There's a wonderful DVD of a rehearsal that Maestro Gergiev did with the Rotterdam Philharmonic of Prokofiev's Scythian Suite. And you get them at one point to sound like dust. And you say, don't play like this, play, and they do, which is a remarkable moment. Do you always use imagery? If you have a piece that's not about something, that is, say, just a symphony, how do you get them to do your bidding?
Well, in case of Scythian Suite of Prokofiev, it was easy. I am myself a Scyth, because I am Ossetian. Ossetia is a relatively small nation, south of Russia, but interesting history. So Ossetians are heirs to Scythian culture. Everyone knows famous Scythian gold collection. Truly amazing. Just so many centuries ago, there were people who were able to create miraculous art. You just don't believe it, but it is miraculous. And in China, in Egypt, in Greece, but Scythian nomads, they were moving on the horses. It was north of Africa, it was entire Europe, it was Siberia, back to north of Africa. Amazing story. Now Ossetians are very small. The Scythian suite of Prokofiev is a very fascinating example of how Prokofiev was thinking of huge symphonic orchestra, incredible power. Maybe it was his answer to Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. Maybe, I think. But to take this story, Alla and Loli, Scythian suite, and to make a fantastic ballet score out of it was his task, and he succeeded. But even Diaghilev couldn't make it a hugely popular ballet production. So it lives on concert stage very successfully. And in this film, most probably you see how I try to make orchestra, Dutch orchestra, not Ossetian orchestra, sound very wild, or sometimes sound very mystical. Well, I can't travel myself 25 centuries back. It's difficult to do. Even for me, I am a traveler, I go to 40 countries a year, more or less. And like PricewaterhouseCoopers, I feel very global myself. I am, just 3 days ago, was in China, just 3 days ago. Then I went to Moscow, then I went to St. Petersburg, then I went to Helsinki, then I arrived in New York. All of this in maybe 28 hours. It happens sometimes to us, sometimes. So, but traveling back, only your imagination. So how you make orchestra sound different? You have to be excited yourself. If you are not thrilled with the composition, how can you expect musicians to be thrilled? Then how can you expect audience to be thrilled? No chance. So you have to be motivated. And I think Prokofiev motivates me, at least for the last 40 years, I would say. Clearly, he is one of most powerful friends, and somehow he challenges you. If you think you will conduct his music, please do it. You will be challenged, because it's quite a task from this huge and glorious noise to make a vivid story where you see characters. Conductor has to know a lot about the sound, about the orchestra, the colors, rhythmic power, harmony, melody, beauty, very important, because it can sound pretty impossible. Scythian suite, boom, boom, boom. But then if you do something and musicians understand how to behave, then it's a miracle of sonority. And I think since we talk about composers, I think composers always hope that they create something and they believe that it's not for library, but it's for people, for live performances. And we have to remember this. And so at some point you feel you are not only slave of composer, but you're also friend of composer. You just help his music to be heard in the best possible way.
If there's no story, though, what do you tell the audience?
Then I will invent the story. I'm sorry to say. It will be my own secret, how I do it, why I do it, but I have to be motivated. So faceless is not for me. I cannot conduct rhythm only. Rhythm for me is also character. Famous conductor Toscanini, who spent much time in New York, he was maybe the best one who could make a simple rhythm a character. Because rhythm sometimes is, what is rhythm? It's organization. But when the little child makes and then falls, this is rhythm. So rhythm, when we speak, sometimes rhythm is even. But the best speakers, they are masters of rhythm. It goes slow, faster, louder. So it has a contrast. That means it's a living phenomenon, living. The rhythm is a very powerful tool, and we achieve a lot with rhythm, I think. And if you are so charged with the rhythmic energy, so even if there is no melody, in the hall there is electricity, public feels magnetic. It just, public is glued to this energy of rhythm. So one has to try at least, I think. Toscanini was great. His attack of rhythm and his ability to keep the rhythm was so phenomenal that you feel like your heartbeat is changed totally, because you feel like you're completely charged with something. It's more powerful than, calorie, what you say, calorie, eat. So I think there is other way of energy helping you in your life, some kind of different, maybe healthier energy. Yeah.
So the way to create and sustain a musical public is to put them in your hands, and you will.
There are many hands
I can think of
in the
worse
world,
fates.
still many more.
My final question is, if you could think of one work that you'd like to see added to the music humanities curriculum, what would that be?
We never talk about composers who are half forgotten. But recently, in London, very recently, 10 days ago maybe, Brazilian pianist Nelson Freire played an encore. We played Brahms Concerto, number 2. Fantastic concerto, great music. It was a good performance. He's a fantastic pianist. And then, once, twice, 3, 4 times work, and then I told Nelson, you should play encore. You think so? Because not every time in London you are asked to play encore. Normally public wants to just express how happy the public is. So if it lasts more than 30 seconds, it means public is happy. It lasted maybe already 3-4 minutes. Then I thought, well, it's appropriate. I said, Nelson, can you play this encore? You remember you played in Moscow? It was Gluck. Not Mozart, not Verdi, not Tchaikovsky, not Wagner, not Puccini. It was Gluck. It was, just to be in paradise for just 2-3 minutes. Yet another time I was convinced that learn more, you will always find another miracle. In the musical world, there are plenty. And we think we know. No, we don't. There is much more than we know. And this encore made entire Barbican Center, everyone was enthralled. This is so beautiful it was. And then it was explosion. Very quiet, very quiet. Nothing really bombastic, nothing too powerful. But the power of music and the beauty of music is power. So we have to learn. And my answer is that in this case, it is this piece of Gluck encore, very short. But my answer is we will learn a lot more than we think we have to learn. And then the story of humankind will continue for thousands of years, and there will be much more to learn for everyone, us including, I think. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you so much. We now will turn to some questions, and first, the format will be, first we'll take a question from a student from the St. Petersburg State University, one of the oldest, largest, and most important universities in Russia. Then we will take a Columbia question, and we will alternate their microphones on either side of the...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to greet our colleagues from Columbia University, and we are speaking from the St. Petersburg University, and we have here students of the Faculty of Arts. Maestro Valery Gergiev is the head of this faculty, and they have several questions to their dean. Please, the first question is by Ekaterina Parisko.
I'm Catherine Parisko. I'm student of St. Petersburg State University now, and I'm going to continue my studies in master program, Theory and History of Keyboard program. And first of all, Valery Abisalovich, all our students, thank you for one of the best modern concert hall in Russia, and for excellent organ there, and for opportunity to play this organ and to participate in master classes by such great organist as Daniel Kerl. And I'd like to ask you, as a rich, experienced conductor with broad repertoire and many, my question is, are there any pieces of music what you have not conducted yet and you'd like to conduct in the nearest future? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to see you all. Hello. Добрый день. Second, thank you for mentioning concert hall. It was one of the most important things I could possibly achieve in my life, together with my colleagues and friends, and I think we did achieve miraculous results with building new concert hall for Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, which has one of the best acoustics today available to anyone around the world. That's a big achievement, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you for mentioning organ. It's a fantastic instrument, and I'm very happy you have easy opportunities to come and hear so many performances in this concert hall and play this organ. Talking about music, which will be yet for me to conduct and to learn, as I pointed already, I'm thinking now of Pelléas and Mélisande. This is a great opera of Claude Debussy, great French composer, whose music I conduct regularly and made recordings of his music. Yet this opera I will conduct for the first time. This will be most probably the most challenging for me in the next few months. The premiere will be in March, I believe, the spring 2012. I will spend some time working on this material. It's a fantastic music, so I'm very much looking forward. And I have to say, if I'm lucky and I live another many years, many will mean not just 2, but at least 20, because 2 is more than 1. That means already many. Yeah? But then, of course, I will do my best to help as many composers as possible, B, as many young colleagues as possible. What I'm saying, young musicians, young colleagues, young can be 10 years old, young can be 20 years old, like winner of Tchaikovsky competition this year, Daniil Trifonov, who is now coming to New York to play with me. Fantastic, gifted, very refined, very mysterious. I think it will take some time before everyone will say, oh, we know everything about him. It will take some time. He is capable of surprising us with a repertoire, with the qualities, with the readings, interpretations. But I'm very happy Tchaikovsky competition this year was able to find some good young new leaders. Most of them are 20 or 20-something. Some of them are 18 or even 17. Koreans, South Koreans, very, very good results. Fantastic Belarusian cellist, Ivan Gary, fantastic French cellist, fantastic Armenian cellist. So you see, it's not Russia, it's not US, it is not Germany, famously known as a big musical countries, you know. It's Armenia, Belarus, South Korea, big country, big economy, big nation, but to win 2 gold medals in Tchaikovsky competition, both medals went to Korea. It's a huge, fantastic result and huge surprise. you don't think normally this way. You think, "Whoa, well, it will be most probably," we think of these big schools and so the world is changing very rapidly, and I think we have to be with the young musicians. Now I can easily allow myself to say this, that if I can do it every day, I will do it every day. So if I spot a talented person, most probably I will do something that he is not losing 10 years, but maybe in 10 weeks he will be already on stage, play for the public. And then it's his chance. If he doesn't play well, first and second and third opportunity are missed or lost, then who is blamed? Maybe he has to be blamed himself, that he didn't really prepare. But we have to create opportunities for young musicians, and I think it will be one of my most important tasks.
Thank you. A question from someone at Columbia. The microphones are on the aisles. You can line up behind the microphone.
It's a pleasure. I've attended your Mahler cycle last year in Carnegie Hall with the Mariinsky Orchestra. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
I was, at the end of the week, I was emotionally exhausted.
Me too.
This is exactly what I want to ask you. In view of the fact that you performed, I don't know, 6 symphonies, one night you had the first and the fifth at the same time, how do you manage the intensity and the stress and yet keep fresh with the orchestra in such a project?
Thank you for mentioning Mahler cycle. I don't think I will do it regularly, conducting 2 symphonies of Mahler in one concert. But one of my best experiences on stage in the last 10 years at least was a concert in London where I performed 2 symphonies of Mahler. At Albert Hall, you talk about 6,500 people easily attending this concert. It was televised by BBC television, so you talk maybe about millions of people. And it was truly very special. Why? Because it is unusual to perform Symphony No. 4, make intermission, and perform Symphony No. 5. I honestly expected some people to go home after Symphony No. 4 because 1 hour is pretty much what you expect from the concert. 1 hour is a little bit not enough, but 2 symphonies of Mahler is very unusual. Then we repeated the same program in Salzburg for the Salzburg Festival. And again, I thought in Salzburg, definitely in Salzburg, many people will leave because the concert will be too long, but at least in London, the public is famous for being able to stand for many, many hours to wait for the ticket, and then to stand at the proms, not to sit, to stand throughout the concert, any concert, because this public is famous. The Salzburg public is very famous for being black tie. Maybe average age is quite solid. I wouldn't say 70, maybe not 70, but certainly not 20, certainly not 20. Everyone seemed to be interested in how this program will either destroy the orchestra or conductor, or will be certainly suffering because you can't do 2 symphonies. The answer is, yes, you can. In this country, you can say, yes, we can. But I say, in this case, I will say, yes, you can do it sometimes, if you celebrate composer, but then you have to do in a totally different way. You have to stress why No. 4 is so different to No. 5. Your string section has to be totally different voice. Your brass will be definitely totally different voice. Your percussion, your winds, your intensity, the temperature of performance, the coloration. But you spend 20, 30 years learning, and then you have a chance to go and do it. But I think for us, we are still mortals, you know. It is not what you should do throughout your life. Mahler Fest like this, or Ring Cycle in 4 days. I did it several times. I don't think it's an ideal way to demonstrate what your orchestra, what your singers can do. So Wagner was wise in thinking of building Bayreuth Theater and then giving people 1 hour intermission between Act 2 and Act 3, or 1 hour intermission between Act 1 and Act 2. So you have to be prepared for a huge experience with opera, but then also relief, you know, relaxation. And I'm learning still how to relax during the performance. I'm learning. I don't think orchestra should be always provoked by a conductor to do something else. I'm learning right now, even throughout this Tchaikovsky cycle, how to make orchestra feel both supercharged, in the same time very relaxed. Even with the most powerful moments, relaxation helps. The sound is very full, but it never loses what you call a beauty of human voice. Even if the brass is playing, yesterday we played a big symphony, 2 symphonies actually, and you want sound to be huge, but you want sound to be human. You want sound to be very full, but still beautiful, not hard. No, it shouldn't make you feel like this, oh, enough, you know, oh, it's too much, you know. So composers normally do not want to tire their public. So conductor also has to learn how not to tire your public, how not to tire your orchestra. And that's a big art which has a lot to think about, has a lot to learn, and I am quite sure by the end of this cycle here in New York, orchestra will be still fresh, because it's not as challenging as 2 symphonies of Mahler together. But that's what we did, and that's how we decided to make a cycle work in New York. And again, I remember one big outcome of this experience for me was that both in Avery Fisher Hall and at Carnegie, people were not leaving in the intermission. So maybe public is, in a way, challenged but happy to compare back to back 2 very different symphonies, especially 4 and 5. Especially 4 and 5 are 2 different worlds, you know. And I think Mahler was capable of doing both. Very tender, very dreamy, and then very full. The symphony number 5 sometimes can be compared to a maybe when the energy of sun starts to burn, just you see that it's nearly impossible to take it anymore. But that's number 5. It sounds happy, it sounds so full, so electric, but it has this extra charged energy. By the final movement after Adagietto, you know, it becomes nearly impossible. But then you are happy because why we love Italy? Most of us, at least, I think. Because when you go and you see a country which was built with many, many monuments of culture preserved, many, really many. But above all, you go to Rome, and then there's a fantastic weather, and you see all Romans 2,000 years ago built this and this and this. It all survived even throughout these 20 centuries. And you see how these people were under this huge south, kind of in the sun energy, built such a miraculous city. And this is more or less what I can say about certain compositions. They come close to impossible. Some of Mahler music is this way, some of Wagner's music is this way, but we love them.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to a question from St. Petersburg State University.
Okay. Next question from St. Petersburg, please, Alexandra Kapinos.
Hello, I'm Alexandra Kapinas, Faculty of Art Music Department. Valery Abisalovich, now I'm working on a project devoted to the management of the classical music events in my native city, one of the suburbs of St. Petersburg, named Sablina. What is your opinion? How can the young musician help to increase the interest towards musical culture in our country? Thank you.
Well, I will answer very, very shortly. We will continue to go to visit many different regions of Russia. This is our country. Mariinsky Orchestra not only plays in St. Petersburg or New York, Mariinsky Orchestra played recently, very recently, in Omsk, in Chelyabinsk, in Orenburg, in Saratov, in Smolensk, and so on and so on. So we always do it. Every year we visit another 10 regions. I think it's a wonderful tradition. It became so. We see many young people. My answer is I am not worried. Remembering the concert in Smolensk where we had maybe 1,200 people, I swear there were maybe 800 young people, something like that. So many young people. I was in China 1 week ago. We had 3 concerts, totally full of people. Maybe 60% of audience was really very young audience. You can see it, but when you make your bow and you come and greet public, you already see a lot of people. You see wonderful young faces. That's all what I want to worry about. If they're there, it will be great. Great for Russia, great for China, great for US. So I'm not worried. It will be great.
Thank you. A question from this side?
Musical education in Russia is one of the most appealing for any musician, and it is so hard to reach it. If I want to have a Russian professor, I have to go to a master class in a major city or music school, mostly in Europe or here. And if I want to go to learn music in Russian and breathe all that Russian culture, I have to struggle with an incredibly difficult application process, not to mention the visa applications. And one of the differences that I see in this audience here and on the screen is that here, on the screen it's mostly people from Russia, and here it's a mixed people. Also in the orchestras and in the schools, it's the same thing. What can be done to improve this openness? I mean, you, of course, are the best ambassador ever by far of Russia, bringing the culture outside, but what about bringing us into Russia to probably learn more?
Well, first of all, if you really want this to happen, it will happen. It will happen to you, if you really want it. Second, I believe relationships between US and Russia will improve. I myself firmly believe in it. The governments finally will work on the process to make it easier for you or easier for our young people back there who are now with us in St. Petersburg. It should be much more natural to imagine that, but it took some time for Europe to get this EU idea to be executed, and now you travel from one country to other without visa application, which is so painful sometimes, correct? But it's okay. I am now more or less known around the world. I also go through these applications. I go to the embassy or consulates myself. Well, we do it. If I want to perform here for you, it most probably will mean I will go to the general consulate or embassy in Moscow or St. Petersburg and get my American visa. So in this case, we are in the same boat, all of us. But if we really want to do it, we will do it. And I'm sure the relationships they're destined to improve, simply because no country, not US, not Russia, can afford truly, I would say, difficult relationships. They simply cannot afford. In the world as it is today, it is a must for our two countries to get to the better understanding and better relationships. Music will help. So we will wait for your great orchestras to come to us. I understand Chicago Symphony comes very soon. You will hear, hopefully, much more from Russian musicians, from Russian opera or ballet companies. In Anna Bolena, not only Anna Netrebko, but also Ildar Abdrazakov and Ekaterina Gubanova, they make this golden trio of this triumphant production at the Met. They all come from Russia. And they're all very, very much related to the Mariinsky, totally. So it was impossible at some point for them to get visa. Anna Netrebko went through this some 16 years ago. She was coming to San Francisco on my request because I believed she will do something very, very well. It was called Ruslan and Ludmila. I wanted her to make a recording and to sing the production. and she had to come to San Francisco where I was conducting. And well, it was difficult also for her, but now she is the singer of the world. But it was difficult, so I challenge you a little bit, yeah? You have to be good, get better and better, and maybe you go through this procedure. Just go and get your visa, and then you will be in Russia. And if you want my help, I promise you will be there.
One final question from St. Petersburg.
Okay, so next question, please. Victoria Derban, first year student.
Hi, my name is Victoria Deban. I'm the second year student of the Faculty of Arts too. Dear Maestro, can you tell about your criteria of professionalism in music?
Repeat your question, please.
Can you tell about your criteria of professionalism in music?
My idea? Criteria?
Criteria.
What's your criteria?
Criteria of professionalism.
Yeah, criteria.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
You have very good voice,
Thank you.
and I have very bad ear, it seems. My criteria of professional music is, there is one line which divides truly good or great music and not so good, not so great music. If I feel I am on this side of the line, I doubt I want to listen furthermore. If I feel I am on the safe side and I listen or I hear something what touches me, makes me feel a little bit happier, you know, and makes me feel involved, that means we're dealing with real music. You know, we live in a world where you enter elevator in a hotel, there is some music played. Then you go to the bar in a restaurant, even during the breakfast, there is some music. Then you are on the street, and naturally there is some music coming to you from somewhere. So you are getting used to some kind of noise which surrounds your life. And sometimes it is, I'm even scared to say Tchaikovsky or Mozart or Verdi, but it's kind of surrogate, you know, where someone plays some music as a background. This is not what Verdi maybe wanted, to be played in every restaurant where the forks and knives make much more noise than his great music. But that's his destiny today. It will happen a million times in St. Petersburg, in New York, in Rome, in Paris. So do you call it musical experience? Maybe not. That's why we build concert halls. That's why we all hope that there will be a great acoustic. That's why we love and respect Carnegie Hall. That's why we came here to celebrate 120 years of Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky himself crossing Atlantic. They didn't fly then. 1891. The power of music brought him here. The power of music or love for music brought us here now to New York to celebrate this unique and historical, if you may say, bridge which our two countries built long before we were born. For me, it's a very important fact of US-Russia relationships. If the wise people of New York decided 120 years ago, let's get Tchaikovsky, greatest living legend from Russia, 1891. That's the answer. What's the future of our relationships? The answer is it will be very, very good, very smart, very healthy. It will prevail, I think, because cultural bridge, human connection was found so long ago and by so many people. How many times Sergei Rachmaninoff played in Carnegie Hall? Maybe someone knows the answer. Rachmaninoff, who is a New Yorker, Rachmaninoff, who is a great Russian, he was born not so far from St. Petersburg, and he spent his last decades of his life here in America. He played nearly 100 times at Carnegie Hall. He was one of the greatest, for me maybe the greatest pianist of all times. He also happened to be one of the greatest composers of 20th century. But if these greats, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Stravinsky, should I continue, they found it possible for them, divide their life between Russia and America, and they remained very Russian, being Americans. So then there is a future, and then there is a hope, and I very much believe in this future. And of course, I want to thank you, I want to thank Columbia University, I want to thank PricewaterhouseCoopers, I want to thank you all in St. Petersburg as well, for this wonderful opportunity to talk about music and about power of music and about learning from music. So thank you very much.
I wish we had time for more questions. I know there are people still here, but we've had a rich and full.
Please.
Really? Oh, I thought those were final remarks.
No, I just wanted to thank you from. I don't want anyone to think we came here to torture you. Really not. Really not. So if any questions, I will answer with pleasure, of course.
Okay.
Hello. My question is about pieces that you found initially difficult as a perspective of as a listener. My first experience with classical music was my dad's favorite record. It was Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1 by Von Cliburn was performing. And I found the first couple of minutes are just incredible. It's gorgeous, gorgeous melody. And then I was only 10 at the time, and I couldn't make it much further in the piece. I would stop listening to it. And for a while, I kept coming back and listening a little bit more. And then finally, I got to the whole thing, and I could see. But initially, it presented a little bit of difficulty for me being so young to listen for so long, and it proved to be a difficult piece to listen to. I wonder if I could ask you if there was a piece of music that initially your response was not so favorable, but only after many listens that you finally come to appreciate its beauty.
If you listen to Tchaikovsky Concerto No. 1 initially, and it doesn't make you feel excited or happy, well, then don't listen to Schoenberg Concerto or even much beloved of Bartok, or just don't do it. Stay with Tchaikovsky. Maybe there should be a second time. If second time didn't work, then I have to tell you there are many wonderful things in your life which you may find most precious to be in touch with, and maybe it's not classical music, but Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 1 is maybe the most obvious choice for those millions and billions of people I just was talking about them, correct? And you want to get on the 11th of October to Carnegie Hall and give it another try? Huh? We will take care of it, if you want. And this young pianist will make you feel quite happy. Yeah. He looks, he's even thinner than you are. He's quite thin, but he makes quite an impressive sonority work. Yeah? So you maybe come and hear him, okay? What's your name?
Stephen.
Good.
I think we do have to call a halt to the questions now, because I'm looking at my handlers, and they're not listening to me. We're over time, but there are more questions. Shall we take more questions?
Okay.
They have several questions from St. Petersburg. So if they have enough time, maybe the last. Okay.
Yes.
One last question.
So please, about operas.
My name is Margarita Yaroshkina. I'm a student of Faculty of Art. Maestro, my question is about Karl Szymanowski and Alfred Schnittke operas, rarely performed in Russia. I'm wondering, is it possible to include, for example, King Roger, Life with the Idiot, or Gesualdo in the Mariinsky future repertoire? Thank you.
Well, my question will be very general. My answer question, it's over for questions, correct? But did you hear Karl Roger when we did it in St. Petersburg? Did you hear it? Szymanowski. If you did, make it known. It was performed 3 years ago.
Oh, maybe. But she's a first-year student. So.
Okay, but if she heard Szymanowski opera Karol Roger performed 3 years ago, that's a good news. There'll be more of it. We will work on the task, and contemporary or 20th century composers will get many opportunities. But don't miss the Midsummer's Night's Dream production. You have to see it. It's a wonderful production. We just put it in July, so it's a Britain opera. Or The Turn of the Screw, it's another Britain opera. So there's many, many great operas written in 20th century, including second half of 20th century. I think we will definitely work on it. And my answer is, sometimes it is more important that Mariinsky or the Met or La Scala, instead of yet another production of Onegin or Traviata or Otello, one of my favorite operas, just simply are putting on stage a contemporary opera. It's so incredibly important to do it. Maybe box office sales will be slightly less impressive. It doesn't matter. We just have to do it, and I believe we all will do it. And if you think that was final question, because I feel very uncomfortable if people want to leave and then we just keep them here. So,
well, where we're going from here is a reception to which everyone is invited at Faculty House, thanks to the kindness of PricewaterhouseCoopers. So please join us and continue to ask the maestro questions. Good. Let me just conclude by saying that it's abundantly clear that Maestro Valery Gergiev is truly a world leader in the musical vision that he brings to all of us, and thus a fantastic addition to our World Leaders Forum. He makes us attentive to the heartbeat of the orchestra, to its communal sound, to its individual voices and colors, and he makes the work of our core curriculum visible and audible, and we're very grateful to him.
Thank you.